Hey there, I'm Lindsay Dreyer, host of the Joyfulpreneur podcast, where I share tips, tricks, and strategies to help women entrepreneurs maximize joy and freedom in their lives and businesses. Let's dive into today's episode. Today, I have Maggie Giele on the podcast. She's a business and marketing strategist, coach, and mentor who is going to share with us how to stand out from the crowd by owning your weird. What is, in the simplest terms you can imagine, the best way to describe how you can stand out from the crowd?
It's about how are you building connection with your ideal clients? How are you building your authority? And how are you showing them that they need you specifically?
Oh my gosh, that sounds like a big job. So let's break this down. Connection with your clients. Let's start with the first one.
So I think a lot of people are struggling with this, especially now with like recession talk and all this stuff coming up. When it comes down to it, if you are able to build a deep connection with your audience, they are going to want to buy from you. Not they want to buy your offer. No, they just want to work with you. And what happens when you do that well is that they're not really going to care what exactly is in your offer. Like, how much time do I get with you? How many calls do we get? It doesn't matter to them because you've built this deeper connection. And a deep connection really looks like showing up as a genuine human being. That, authenticity buzzword that we have.
Mm-hmm.
But we can break it down further to like looking at what are the quirks of your personality? What are your hobbies? Let's make a list of things that just make you stand out a little bit from the next person and build you into almost this like multifaceted business persona that is a version of you with some things maybe a little bit exaggerated. Like as an example, I'm really into fantasy and video games. I don't go around talking about like wizards and dragons in my daily life, but I use a lot of that imagery in my business because guess what? It helps me stand out and build a deeper connection.
That's so interesting. So using your weird.
Use your weird. Absolutely.
How do we get comfortable with using our weird? I think it's so hard for people. We don't want to let people in. We don't want to stand out. But isn't that what we want to do when we're marketing? So how do we get comfortable with being weird or being ourselves?
Do you want to make money?
Ooh, okay. You have my attention.
Do you want to work with dream clients? Do you want people saying like, Lindsay, I'm saving up to work with you and I can't wait. Lindsay, I've got you on my vision board. Like I've had people literally say that to me.
That's amazing. Yeah. There's like no better dream, right? I'm saving up to work with you because you're amazing.
Yeah. Or it's, or because I believe in how you can help me because we've built this connection. And this can just be like through social media, through videos, through DMs, just through your content. And starts with really like owning your weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's really scary. So I went through this because I went like straight from my master's into starting my own business. So I went from this quite like a corporate mindset almost. So to me, I was really stuck on, I have to be professional. And I ended up having a bit of a burnout. And when I was coming back from it, I realized I am really boring online. Like I am genuinely bored with creating my own content. How bored must people be reading about it, reading what I'm saying? So I thought about like, what makes me interesting? What makes me unique? So I was like, cool, I grew up in Singapore. I live in Amsterdam. My dog's name is Frodo. I have a big fantasy thing. I play video games most evenings. Okay, let me use that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started using that. And I actually like dropped out of it for a while as well because there's one business coach when I was trying to like level up to a more premium kind of multi-six-figure level. There's one person who I respected said, oh, it's quite childish. Like you have a unicorn as your logo, like take it out. And I did, which was a mistake.
Yeah.
So I actually ended bringing back all this stuff. So for example, this is like me really owning my weird. Recently, I started doing a live stream where I stream myself playing a video game while answering business and marketing questions.
That sounds so fun, though.
It is really fun.
Right. I am obsessed with this because I believe that anytime you can combine things that you truly love and things that really spark joy for you, people feel that energy, and that energy is contagious. Like people want to work with you. They want to be in your orbit when they're feeling that energy.
That's the thing. And, you can think about it as energy. You can think about it as this is you connecting on a more human level. Because I think as coaches, consultants, service providers, we can get really into this. Oh, I have to be an authority. Like Maggie and Lindsay just talked about building your authority. So I have to be professional. I have to give advice and educate and share the top 5 tips. And yes, that's part of building your authority. But if you go too far into that and you don't own your weird, you don't add your own sparkle, I call it adding your own unicorn sparkle to what you do.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Very meta. That's me adding my own unicorn sparkle to what I do and teach. But if you don't do that, you're going to be seen as a commodity. You can be seen as yet another, basic bitch business coach, yet another designer, copywriter, OBM. When you really, really, really want, if you want to stand out, if you want to get clients consistently, predictably, if you want to grow, you have to think about how am I creating genuine human connections on a deeper level through my marketing.
Mic drop. Okay. How do you own your weird while at the same time build authority? Because I feel like we are all taught being an authority is being serious. So how do you mesh the two?
I very much agree with you. I do think that's what we're taught and what our minds go to. But being seen as an authority really means that people believe you can help them. That doesn't mean you are now trying to be, I don't know, Oprah. Like that doesn't have to be you. And you don't have to own all your weird. You get to choose like which elements of you want to kind of maybe exaggerate a little bit or just put on display a little bit more. For me, it was fantasy and video games. It's a very big part of my personality. I could have also gone in more with like the international factor of growing up in Asia and all these places. Or I really love kickboxing and I did taekwondo for many, many years. That's another angle I could have taken. I'm a huge hard rock metal fan. So I think it's thinking about what are the elements of your personality? And it's things like your life experiences, your certifications, where you've studied, what experience you have, what your hobbies are, what your quirks are, and picking out what do you think can make it seem more like you're a multifaceted human being and not turn people off. So for me, for example, with the fantasy stuff, like I'm like, could it turn people off because they think it's childish? If you're like that serious that you can't handle me saying, hey, it's your resident business wizard here, you
probably don't want to work with them. Yeah, exactly. So it's really, you're putting out the bait to attract your ideal clients.
Yes, but here's the interesting thing, because I thought when I start talking about fantasy and like Lord of the Rings and all of that stuff and video games, I'm going to attract all my like fantasy nerds, gamer girls, whoever. The opposite has been true. Like most of my clients are not into any of that stuff at all. And they say, I like that you are into something. It made you memorable. And that's the difference.
So how do you show people you know what you're doing?
So that's where your content comes in. You want a couple of different types of content. So firstly is value-based content. That's a lot of that educational 5 tips kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You want some level of story-based content as well. That's again, building a genuine human connection. So one of the stories I shared recently, which literally got, I think, double the amount of engagement as my other posts, was that I got a gut feeling to call my grandmother, which I didn't get very often. I called her. We had like one of the most loveliest conversations we've ever had. And 3 hours later, I got a call that she had collapsed and passed away.
Oh my gosh.
Very unexpectedly. And I wrote a post about that. Like, this was a few years ago. So, it's not as painful anymore, but I wrote a story about that with like trusting your gut and then just doing the thing that you think about. Because for me, I'm so grateful. I listened to my gut that day. But I spun it into like a bit of a business lesson around taking action and moving forward. But it also showed a more human side to me. So instead of just going like 5 ways to get more clients into your group coaching program and like 3 systems all consultants should have, you're adding more humanity into this and more connection. I'm kind of combining the authority and connection piece here, I know. So let me kind of summarize the rest. So we've got value-based content, we've got story-based content, we want social proof content.
Mm-hmm.
So you're sharing case studies, screenshots, results. These could be your own, they could be your clients. Use a combination, depends on your business. But you need to be sharing some kind of evidence that what you just told me in your value-based and story-based content is true. Most people don't do this. Or they do it really badly with like, oh my gosh, I got this new testimonial from Lindsay, and here's like 2 paragraphs of tiny text in a script font about how, like, no one cares. So, like, sorry. I want to see results. Tell me where Lindsay was here before she worked with me. We did these 3 things, and here's the results that they had on her business. Like, tell me that.
Yep.
The 4th type of content, super simple, call to action. And that could just be like, I'm looking for 3 entrepreneurs who want to shift out of one-to-one services and scale with a leverage program. Send me a message. Done. That's your post. So the content piece builds authority. You getting on other platforms builds authority. So me being on this podcast, guess what? Builds my authority.
Mm-hmm.
You doing this podcast builds your authority. So that's another piece that really elevates you, because I'm now in almost like a teacher kind of position. Like, people are listening and I'm explaining something, which helps build my authority.
Okay. I'm sold on the authority now. When you're giving away content on any platform, email lists, social, whatever, we work pretty hard on developing freebies, information. How do you convert that information, or the people you get, those people who want the freebies, to paying clients? What's your advice on that?
I don't really care about freebie seekers, to be honest. If you're on my list and you're going to read all my emails and never buy anything from me, like, fine. But I'm going to sell to you
Mm-hmm.
in those emails. So if you're there to explicitly never buy something from me, you're going to get annoyed and leave, which is kind of what I want.
Okay. How do you specifically annoy them so they leave?
So like, because I sell regularly, and I think everyone should be selling regularly, because if you're following the content flywheel I just laid out, you should be talking about your offer at least like once a week, basically. There's like once a week, there's some kind of like, here's what I do, here's the next step, book your discovery call, book your game plan call, let's talk about my program, my offer, whatever. So if you have like full-on freebie seekers, they are probably going to feel a bit pressured with that, and they're going to leave, which is fine. Like, that's what you want. So I think there's a difference between people who join your list to get a freebie and then they're in your orbit.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. We want to nurture that relationship. We want to build that relationship. But the people who join our list just to get a freebie, who are never going to buy from us anyway, like, whatever, it's fine. Bless them and set them free.
I love that. Yes. Bless and forget. Goodbye.
Does that answer your question? I think I went a little bit off track.
No, tangents are some of my favorite things on the podcast, because that's where the nuggets of gold come out.
Let me just add on to something, because I just want to kind of actually answer your question.
Yes.
With the freebie seekers and the authority and converting them to clients. So one, it's really, really important that you have not just the value content, not just the story content, but you have the social proof content and the call to action content. Really important. People skip that step. And you have a clear sales process. Like, how are you getting people off of your email list or off of your Instagram or off of your podcast into a sales process? How do you get them to take the next step? Which means, how do you get them to see that they need to take the next step? It's, just saying, oh, hey, Lindsay, do you want to book a call and chat about how I can grow your business? Probably not going to cut it 90% of the time.
So what is a great call to action?
Outcome-based. So, hey, are you an overworked coach or service provider who's feeling a little burnt out on client delivery? You know it's time to start leveraging your time better with a one-to-many option.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the next step. So like, then book your free game plan call. That's like the term I use a lot. But you have something that's like, here's what you want, here's who you are, here's the next step you should take and why.
I'm sold. I'm booking my game plan call right now. I'm in. How do you become the category of one, like the one option for your client?
I think it's really a combination of what we discussed. It's building a deep human connection while not getting friend zoned. You know what I mean? Like sometimes like you think you're building a business relationship and you end up like, oh, we're actually now we see each other. That person sees me as a peer versus as a potential.
Okay, we're going to dive into this right now. Friend zoning, let's talk about it. So how can we prevent the friend zone? Because this does happen.
I think it's around being specific about what you want and not trying, like, okay, I just want to kind of have a caveat here. What I'm about to talk about can be used for evil. So don't use it for evil. Because like these tactics can be used in really sleazy ways, and we've all gotten like the weird DMs.
Mm-hmm.
And so this can be used for that, but please don't. Like, no, we're not going to do that. So firstly, be clear. Like if you're using, let's say, content and then a DM strategy or a content and call strategy, or just building relationships online through commenting, let's say, so that's more in like the lead and the nurture phase of things. If you get like too friendly and too open, you can kind of get friend zoned. So one tip I have here, I got this from Bushra Azar, who I love. She said, this has stuck in my head for like years now, don't share the train wreck while it's happening.
Okay. What does that mean?
So if you are going through like a massive, let's say there's a tech thing happening and things aren't working, don't go to the place where you are, nurturing clients and say, oh, this thing isn't happening right now. Because you're going to get people who say, oh, Lindsay, let me help you sort that out. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Which immediately kind of moves you away from Lindsay, the expert who can help me, to Lindsay, the person I can potentially help and I can potentially sell my services to. So I'm not saying like never do that. Sometimes I'm like, hey, like this thing on my Mac isn't working. Anyone know? Because Google's not helping, whatever. When you're in this situation, share that stuff and ask for help from like your coach or strategist, from your mentor, from your mastermind, from your peer support circle. But have this like quite delineated. Like I have a handful of business friends.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to sell them anything. They're not trying to sell me anything. And we're there and we're open with each other. And that's like a full-on open business friend relationship.
Yes. It's a consensual business friend relationship.
Yes. We're both on the same page.
Yes.
Like, yeah, cool. Hey, can you just check this piece of copy for me? Yeah, cool. Can you check this landing page? Whatever. But I think when people like try to nurture relationships that they want to lead into a sale eventually, some people, take longer to be ready to work with you. Others don't. They get into very like, oh, how's your day going? Oh, what did you do? How was your weekend? That's great. When I'm like, you can just be like, oh, hey, how's business going? Oh, awesome. Like, oh, yeah, that's a challenge. Great. Like, what have you tried? Do you want me to brainstorm with you? Have you tried X or Y? Cool. Well, that is something I can help with. Do you want to explore that option? And again, like these can be used like a really easy way. So what I teach is much more of not much more. It's a empathy-based sales. It's consent and permission-based sales via DMs. It's just like, how do you build relationships where you are still staying in that space of authority while being a genuine human? I think it's like, honestly, it's quite a nuanced thing. Just be smart about it.
Well, I think if you're being honest and authentic with your intentions, then it's okay. But yeah. I think everyone understands what page we're on. We understand why you're sending me a message, and I have permission to say no and yes.
And like you can do a lot of that with like your content. So if you say, so let's say I want to sell 2 spots in my program with like, how do you build a group coaching program, or how do you sell your own mastermind and evergreen? If I wrote a post that said, hey, I actually have these like, this Google Doc I've made with like the 4 systems that every person needs if you're trying to get your group coaching program on evergreen, who wants it? And I have 20 people respond. Guess what? I now have permission to message them.
Exactly.
Hey, Lindsay, you wanted that thing. I'm going to send it to you. By the way, can I ask you a few questions?
Mm-hmm.
Now you've raised your hand saying, hey, that is something I want. It's a solution or a problem that I have or I want. Yes. Cool. I'll message you.
So if you get into the friend zone, can you get out of the friend zone?
I think it's quite difficult.
I know. I think so too.
I think it's quite difficult. I've been there, and this is like a mistake I made a lot, especially at the beginning of my business, because I heard about like, oh, you have to build relationships. So I did. And then I would be like helping someone, and they would turn around and hired a different strategist. And I was like, what the hell, man? Like, just, huh. And that just got me thinking like about my own messaging, my own positioning. I realized, well, I'm not actually super clear about how I help. Great. How can I be clearer? How can I talk more about here's a specific problem I help people solve? How can I share a lot more evidence that what I know works? And how can I have and nurture these conversations in a way that still feels like really good and genuine to me as a human being?
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, it's just like I'm also kind of pre-qualifying them. Could they be a client? Can I actually help them or not?
Do you consider yourself an extrovert or an introvert?
Introvert, massively.
So how do you build relationships as an introvert?
Text and voice notes. Like, really? So, like, side note, I found out I was an introvert like 4 years ago or 5 years ago after I started this Facebook group called Bosses in Europe and Beyond, which was initially meant to like kind of bring together entrepreneurs and freelancers based in Europe. It's now expanded. And that first year I was like, oh, I'm going to start doing these events in like Amsterdam and Belgium and Germany and London, every quarter. And I ran like 4 events in like 8 months. And I was saying to my mom, like, God, I'm so tired. I don't know why. She was just like, that's because you're an introvert. I'm like, what? I'm a what?
She knew your whole life and she didn't tell you?
Yeah, because, yeah. She thought I knew, but I didn't.
Yeah, I actually am in the same boat. I didn't realize I was an introvert because I just played a really good extrovert for a really long time, but I was always so incredibly tired.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Like, I was in theater. I was on stage. I was doing the performance thing. I'm social. I like talking to people, but then I just really want to get into my fluffy PJs and just play Skyrim on the PlayStation.
Gotta recharge. I know. It's so true. Wrapping up our owning your weird, do you have any final tips on the resistance to it? Like how I feel like there's some mindset work that needs to be dealt with here. So how do we get out of our heads and just be ourselves?
Yeah. So I think it's a really nuanced conversation. The professional is subjective. So it does depend on your industry. Like if you, I don't know, so I'm going to use an extreme example. If you like work with children and one of your quirks is that you're really into BDSM, probably wouldn't combine that.
Yes, no, you are definitely not combining that. That is a horrible idea.
But I know someone who's really into BDSM and she's a systems expert and it really works for her brand.
That's amazing.
And it's very controversial. Like it's controversial. It's eye-catching. A lot of people are not going to like, that's more of an extreme example. I'm not saying you should do that, but that is her thing and it works. And it attracts a certain kind of person. So for you to own your weird, I would start with like, what are kind of elements of your weird that feels safer to share? You don't have to share things that are not feeling good or safe. I had this realization last year, which is why I kind of went back to my original branding and like that fantasy and all those elements. Cause I realized, wow, we all have like the photo shoots in Paris. We've all shared like the selfie with a glass of champagne in business class seat. The, oh my God, hashtag 100K month. It's boring.
It's all the same. Yeah, it's all the same.
It's all the same. So when you think about it, if your sales are not where they want to be, where you want them to be, if you're only like getting clients via referrals or via like having a deep one-to-one kind of connection with them via like networking or like a personal conversation, then they become clients, but your marketing isn't converting, I would be very, very thinking very, very deeply about, are you connecting enough? Are you being seen as enough of a multifaceted human being and not like the next person? And are you building your authority enough? Because the worst case scenario is when people start comparing your offer to someone else's and they start price shopping, because that means you do not stand out enough.
You're a commodity. Exactly. Yes, you are not a category of one. You are one of many. And that's when people start price shopping. You're totally right. I am going to make a wager that one of the ways you can stand out is to say what everyone is thinking, but is too scared to say. Do you agree?
Yes. 100% yes. It's sharing unapologetic opinions, and I know it's scary. Trust me, like I'm scared. Like I shared this post about being a basic business coach bitch a while ago where I called myself out because I've done all those things. I've done all those things. I did a photo shoot in Paris last year. Like, I just realized this is like, yeah, it's nice and it's fun and it makes me feel good. It's an ego boost, but like this isn't really me, and it's not feeling good. It's not feeling enough or deep. And I think when you start calling things out, not necessarily in a negative way, because honestly, I really think the online space doesn't need more negativity and more
Right.
like you're doing this wrong and you're doing that wrong. But you can call it out in a way that's like making fun of it or making fun of yourself. Like I did it with my post, which I was just like, well, actually, I kind of fell into this trap myself. And the photo I used with that post was from my trip to Ecuador, and I just said, I didn't wear makeup for like 10 days. I just wore like hiking pants that had holes in them. And it was amazing. I had like the best time. And I thought about like, you know, what am I doing here with this? So that's kind of how I like to do it, because I don't want to be like, all these coaches are doing something wrong and I'm calling them out, because that doesn't feel very good to me, because I like being a nice person. I like my style is quite direct. I want to be honest. But I want to do it in a way that's actually helpful and gets people to think about stuff instead of getting them to feel bad about something. So that's just, I guess, my personal approach with this. Went off on a little bit of a tangent there.
No, that was dead on.
Completely agree with you. I think you sharing like unapologetic opinions, like what do you actually think about your industry? Like I just said, like, listen, do you know how many coaches come to me saying, why am I not at 10K months? And they don't even have their contract automated. Or they're sending manual invoices to clients and then saying, oh, I'm spending so much time chasing up on payments. I'm like, why is that not automated? Why are you not like use Thrivecart? Like it's there. Take the money out of their account once they sign up with you. Don't wait on invoices getting paid. So that's stuff that I feel really good about calling out, because it's really useful. Like, yeah, you're doing this wrong, but please go fix it and it's going to be better.
So do you feel like that's a way to just avoid haters? Like you're not going to get haters if you're doing it you're calling things out in a respectful way?
No, you're going to get haters anyway. Like they're not mutually exclusive.
How do you deal with them? How do you deal with the haters?
Block and ignore.
Perfect. They don't like you're weird, block and ignore.
No, it's just, I had like some guy, Facebook screaming at me that he's not on there to be advertised to. And I'm just like, okay, bye.
Yes, you are. You agreed to the terms of service. That's why you're here.
Yeah. Or like I ran this ad a while back. So I had this graphic of the feast and famine client cycle. Like you get a client, you're super excited, you work with them, everything's like, unicorns farting rainbows. Ooh.
Yeah.
See, another example of owning my weird. Then you realize, oh, the client's finishing next week. I've stopped marketing because I've been busy. I have no pipeline. Oh, crap. What do I do? Okay, market like crazy. Do the thing. I'll get a new client. So that kind of cycle happens. And I had this ad running, and like all the people commenting on it were like, oh, this is going to sound really sarcastic, but I'm also kind of sarcastic with this. So I'm just like, dude, no. Oh, that's never a problem because I use the quiet periods to manifest and the universe always delivers and the client always shows up. I'm just like, cool. So working with a business growth strategist is clearly not what you want. If like, cool, that's you do you.
Yeah.
Or the people who want more control of their marketing and their lead generation and their sales. Hi, I'm here.
Right. You had I'm just going to sit here and manifest. But if you would like my help in getting things done, then let's do this.
yeah. If you don't want to just wait and hope that things will fall in your lap, and I hope they do for you, genuinely, I'm also like, that's okay. So I don't know. I think like the whole hater thing, I think there's a lot more fear around this than what actually happens. Like, even as you start getting more visible, what's much more likely to happen if you are sharing your opinions is that the people who don't agree with that necessarily are either going to go in and be like, hey, Lindsay, you shared this thing. Well, I actually have this other perspective, which is awesome because now you have engagement on your content and you can go into discussion. Amazing. Or they're going to be like, ooh, I don't agree with that. And they're going to unsubscribe or unfollow and leave, which is fine. And this is kind of really important because when you work as a coach or as a consultant, as a strategist, when you're working with someone on a more personal level, so if that's in one-to-one services, client delivery, group coaching, whatever, they need to like you as a human being. Like, you don't have to be best friends, but there needs to be like a general level of connection and trust. And if you disagree fundamentally on certain things, you're not going to work out. Like, I'm very vocal about believing in freedom, and I believe in working hard, but I also believe in setting up your business to support the way you want to live your life.
Oh, totally. I definitely agree with that. So an important step in owning your weird is that you're not going to be liked by everybody. And you have to be okay with that, and that you're not for everybody.
I just want to reframe this a tiny bit.
Please.
If that's okay. I think owning your weird isn't really going to be about, oh, people don't like me now. You have a choice. You either don't own your weird and you stay bland and you stay vanilla, and people kind of go, that Lindsay, scroll past.
Right.
That's option one. Option two is you starting to add more elements of your personality. If that's like how you swear, how you talk, like use actual language that you would say, share your opinions, make me see you as a human being and an expert. And then with option two, you're building genuine connection, and the people who are drawn to you because you're now sharing your values, you're sharing your life experiences, they're going to be connected to you on a much deeper level. Like, that's why I also I'm fairly open about having ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fairly open about my struggles with focus and productivity and how I've built my business model in a very minimalist way, because I also have a very unpredictable chronic illness. I don't talk about that a lot. And that's, again, kind of that decision of I could make my entire story about overcoming a lot of health issues, a lot of hospitals, a lot of surgeries, a lot of side effects. Like, it was rough.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I've intentionally chosen not to do because I don't want to be seen as, well, one, when you talk about chronic illness, you open the door to unsolicited advice. Don't want that. And I don't want to be seen as someone like that you should pity, because it's in the past and still an issue, but like very much under control. So that's something I've chosen. Like, I want like 3% of my personality to mention that stuff, but that's not a focus. And I'm perfectly fine with the ADHD being a focus, because we, as entrepreneurs who work from home mostly, we all deal with things about productivity and shiny object syndrome and prioritizing and all the ideas. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You
totally.
get to pick.
Yes, you get to choose. You get to choose what you share with the world, and it's okay to not share some things, but it is okay to share some things that maybe you previously thought were not shareable. It's weakness, it's vulnerability. It's what we see as like that soft, we don't always have to be this hard, perfect character. Like, we are all human. And I think when people can see that humanity, it's endearing.
It is. And that's kind of going back to what I said earlier about not sharing the train wreck while it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Share the story afterwards. Like, you don't have to share in the moment, oh my God, this horrible thing just happened. That's probably in most cases not going to help you actually build your authority. So that, again, there's a bit of a balance between how vulnerable should you be. I get this question a lot, actually. I'm like, you don't have to share your story if you don't want to.
Right.
You don't have to. No one's saying you should. We're just saying, how can you start adding multiple elements of your personality and what makes you you, so you're able to build a deeper connection, and you're not this bland 1 in 1,000, business coaches or copywriters or OBMs.
Jumping to my questions that I love to ask everybody. What book changed your life?
How many can I?
Oh, I'll give you 3. Go for it.
3. Okay, 3 books.
I love your bookshelf.
It's kind of color-coded as well.
It also is really pretty, I was going to say.
Thank you. I have this whole other, these are all my business books, and you can't see this, but upstairs I have the same bookshelf, and they're all fantasy books.
Oh, so fun.
Books that changed my life. So start with Why by Simon Sinek. Absolute game changer. It just made me really rethink things. I'm also a huge fan of, oh my God, only 3? Joyfulpreneur by Denise Duffield Thomas. Also, like, just simplicity and how do you make things easier. And I'm going to have to add a fantasy book here because I can't just say 3 books.
Okay.
This is a love or hate one. And that's The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan.
All right, awesome. I've heard of 2 of the 3 of those. You can probably guess which one I haven't heard of. What is your key to joyful entrepreneurship?
Focusing on how you can help.
Do you get joy from helping people?
A lot. I get a lot of fulfillment of seeing people's eyes light up. Like, I literally just last week, I had a client, I gave her a messaging tweak. She booked a $13,000 client because of that. And she came back and was just like, Maggie, oh my gosh, this was absolutely amazing. Like, thanking me for that. I'm like, that ripple impact is incredible.
If listeners want to find you, what is the best way that they can find you?
Come hang out with me on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, pick your poison. And I have some pretty cool resources. I've got a nice little case study video of how I went from burning out coach with a team of 7 contractors to scaling as a multi-6-figure business with a minimalist business model and basically almost no team.
Awesome. Thank you so much for dropping your wisdom and also just being so real and authentic. You're really fun. I loved your energy and I can't wait to share this with everybody.
This was super fun. Thank you for bringing out like this great energy and I had so much fun. This is great.
Before I let you go, I wanted to let you know that I have a 5-day Spark Joy Challenge, and it is totally free, available on my website. You can go to joyfulpreneur.link/podcast. The link is also in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to the Joyfulpreneur podcast. Remember to check the show notes for all the links and resources mentioned in this episode. Your reviews also mean the world to me. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Until next time, stay joyful.